uncertain times, sound financial advice, very important.
And that's why each Thursday we are joined live by Steve Peasley, a registered investment advisor and the president of Dana Point-based KPP Financial. Welcome, Steve.
Again, thanks for having me.
Steve. You made my morning just by handing this book to me, The Millionaire Next Door.
It's a very interesting book. I have had it. It's been in print for years.
I've seen it around.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
And as you handed it to Shali, you said, you know what? It's easy to become a millionaire.
Well, it is in Orange County because if you own a house, you're a millionaire. But it's difficult to become wealthy. There's a difference. There's a difference between wealth and earning a lot of money. Wealth is accumulation. So how do you become wealthy? That's the issue.
And how do you become at peace? I mean, that's what we have you here today to talk just about how you can be peaceful. And all this time we have bills and all this stuff going on. So what are some qualities that
the best advice anybody can give anybody is to live below your means. In other words, spend less than you earn. That's number one. Live well below your means. And I think that's the most difficult thing for most people to achieve because everybody wants things. Number two, wealthy people believe it's more important to be financially independent than it is to display how much money they have. In other words, they don't have the latest car. They don't have $50,000 Gucci
But they've got
watches.
enough in the bank or enough in liquid assets that if something happened and they needed to walk away from a job or a situation,
yes, they do
that.
As a matter of fact, 80% of all wealthy people have what they call money that they just walk away from everything and they can just live comfortably. We won't use the term they use.
We know the term. And then what's the third?
Third thing is they choose the right occupation. You know, sometimes you love doing something, but it doesn't pay anything.
Right.
Wealthy people usually have an occupation that pays well. 2/3 of them are self-employed.
Right.
2/3 are self-employed, yes.
Which is another way of saying 2/3 of them, you make money by having equity, by owning something, your own business.
That's right, and not spending it. Not spending it is probably key. And Shelley, the first time I was on with you, you cut up a credit card. That's a great start. That's a great start, yes. Cut out that credit card debt, because it's expensive debt.
What if you get involved in a situation where you're like a husband and wife team and it's not all about you? And how do two people work together? Because one could maybe not share what the other one's doing.
That's difficult. According to the book that we were just discussing, most wealthy people, one spouse is very, very organized about spending.
Might be another way of saying frugal.
Yes. I'm trying not to use terms that might sound negative, you know. But yes, they are. Then they're very careful about it. But as a couple, you probably have to share and be on the same page if you plan on being wealthy.
If you didn't have any of the 4 qualities that you had just mentioned, and it's like a no, 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 what can you do to start doing that? Because those are some big changes
If you're going to be comfortable, I know they're big changes, it's difficult. But remember, we're talking about being peaceful with finance. And the first start is you've got to be open and honest about who you are and what you do. If you're a spender, you have to say, I'm a spender. It's like an alcoholic. You got to admit your problem.
Right.
And then say, well, what can I do to control that? And of course, the best way is to set a budget for yourself. And make sure that budget is below your monthly or bi-weekly income.
You make an interesting point. I think this is something that's also brought out in the book. That a lot of millionaires out there that you wouldn't even, that's why it's called The Millionaire Next Door. You wouldn't even know that they're a millionaire.
You would not know. I lived in the same house, in my same house for 20 years, paid off, and I never had the fancy stuff. Well, now I have the reward of those many years of living very frugally.
I think a great example that I know, although some people might think this controversial, is Ralph Nader. I mean, Ralph Nader looks like a guy who might not have a job, and of course he crusades for consumers. Ralph Nader is a multi-millionaire.
Yes, he is.
You never know it.
Warren Buffett.
He owns stock.
That's right. Warren Buffett still owns the same house he had bought in 1955.
And some 20-year-old pickup truck, I think.
That's right. Of course, he also owns a couple other houses. But
Buffett can do the profligate thing as well. Steve Peasley, always a pleasure. President of KPP Financial. It's out of Dana Point. Check out his website. It's at InvestTalk.com. Steve will be back next Thursday. But if you have a question for him, email it to us. Our address, news@kdoc.tv. Have a great weekend, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. All right, guys, let's check